Super Senpai Podcast. Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a weekly, episodic, tokusatsu-related podcast where we'll fight you if you diskaiju. I'm Pat.
I'm Grant. we're experimenting with new rhymes. We hope you enjoy them. And with us this week, just to add something confusing because it's an audio format podcast, and we already have someone named Pat. Please welcome a good buddy of the show, Patz.
Hello, here I am. Also named Pat.
Welcome. But to be clear, you're Patz and I'm just Pat. No plural. No Z.
I am mini Patz.
Yeah. So, but it's even more confusing in Japan because they don't have the Z at the end. So they just call it Pat over there, I think, right?
Yeah.
So this is like a Dragon Ball Z situation.
It gets very complicated.
Yeah.
But no, we're really glad to have you on. Been on your show before. And really like a lot of your work, and you're just a cool dude in general. So it's nice to have you on talking about a show that also has like two reds. So I guess the confusion is just spilling across the line between fiction and reality here.
I mean, yeah, it's good to be on with you guys. I'm excited to talk about all the reds.
So tell us a little bit about some of your background with tokusatsu.
I mean, like, I'm the generic kind of answer for this kind of stuff. I liked Power Rangers and robots as a kid, so I always kind of had, like, an affection for that stuff. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of dabbled in it a bunch, but I've never been a super hardcore tokusatsu guy. I've talked to you about this before, Grant. Like, Kamen Rider Forze is my favorite tokusatsu show ever. Anything.
Excellent choice.
Because it's brilliant on a million levels. But beyond that, like, my relationship with Super Sentai outside of Power Rangers has been kind of just sporadic stuff that stood out to me, and I try it out, watch like a couple episodes and either stick with it or fall off the train real quick. Especially with modern Super Sentai, I feel like I've struggled to really get kind of hooked on any of it. Like, the last show before this that I watched any serious amount of was, I guess, Go Busters.
Oh, that's been a few years, and it was 2012, maybe? 2012, I guess?
I mean, that's about right.
Yeah, so it's been a few years.
Yeah, so it's been a few years since I really watched much Super Sentai. I was really interested in the last one, the space one, whose name always escapes me.
Q Ranger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, after seeing enough, like, less than stellar responses to it, it didn't really suck me in. Which is interesting, and actually kind of a very similar reaction that I've had to Lupinranger so far. So I don't know how into the weeds we want to get into that yet, but that's kind of my relationship with Toku. Is I've dabbled in things. I love Kamen Rider Forze. I love Kamen Rider Build. I liked Kuga at the time. I have the only like old show from that I'm a big fan of is V3, which I watched thanks to the what is the name of the company? Kikaider Generations or something like that, right?
Right.
The guys out of Hawaii that put it out on DVD.
Oh boy.
That show's great. It's fantastic and I love it. But I haven't really given much older stuff a watch beyond that.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am with Toku.
Okay, so you're a little more mixed, other than a few real big standouts, as opposed to some of the diehards we've had on.
Yeah.
Like singular Pat and myself, who are more true believers, as it were. So you say you're a little lukewarm on the show so far?
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically, it's one of the best looking ones I feel like I've seen in a long time. Probably since Go Busters, honestly. It's got a really, really great look to it. I love the costumes for both sides. I think they're fantastic. Like especially the Lupinranger ones. I really like those a lot. But there's something about the acting and the action too, if I'm being brutally honest, that I'm not as excited about. And I think what really hurts the show for me, for what I kind of am coming to these things for, is I'm watching it at the same time as Kamen Rider Build. And I think that hurts this show a lot, at least for me, because Build is so good. The acting from just the leads is fantastic, generally speaking, especially really for one of these shows. Like, it's really, really good. The suit acting is really good. The fight scenes are really well choreographed, and the plotting is insane for one of these shows. If I'm being honest, like I can gush about that show forever. This show, the one that we're actually talking about, I feel like is struggling in a lot of those exact same areas. I feel like a lot of the actors are kind of lukewarm, especially Lupin Red. He just does nothing for me, and I think that's a big part of the problem for me. I love the Red Patranger. I actually can't remember his name. I love him, but beyond like him and then Lupin Blue, the rest of them kind of don't do much for me, at least at this point, acting-wise. And then if I'm talking about fight choreography, I think the antagonistic relationship between the Patrangers and the Lupinrangers makes the fight choreography kind of a mess. Because everything is a three-way fight. Because there's the Ganglers, there's the Lupinrangers, and then there's the Patrangers, and they're all fighting each other at the same time.
Right.
And I feel like it makes a lot of the fight choreography hard to follow.
All right.
That's at least where I've kind of ended up with it. I wasn't planning to come on here and just be Mr. Downer on this show.
No, it's good. We need, I mean, part of the joy of having multiple guests on is to have different perspectives. And obviously, I don't share those opinions. I enjoy the chaotic nature, I guess, because from my own perspective, even though I love Sentai and stuff like that, a lot of times big team fights, they almost feel maybe JRPG-like is what I'm looking for, where you have just two sides lining up and throwing special attacks. So having a little more chaos in the mix, I think works for me. I think you're right, it is harder to follow, but I guess for me that's a feature, not a bug. But no, it's good. I mean, we want people to be on that don't feel the exact same way about the show so that we can convert you. That's the point.
Yeah.
Or just I think I welcome the discourse of it. It's worthwhile either having to defend our position or just accept or concede that there's things about it that not everyone's gonna like, and that's okay. Right.
For now,
definitely.
We're just gonna tell him that up front.
Whoops, my bad.
But no, we are glad to have you here, and we're excited to watch this one with you, and hopefully by the end, I brought you over to the magic that is Lupinranger versus Patranger. But I also agree, having myself working through Build in the background, that Build is a very, very strong show that is tearing up a lot of the script for these types of things. Like, it feels very much like it's like, well, this is the last one before Heisei's done. Let's just pull out all the stops. So I can see that being a hindrance for this show.
And I am 100% confident in the idea that it'll happen exactly like it did with Forze for me, where I'm in love with this show and then just don't touch anything else again for a long time.
That could be it.
Because that's exactly what happened with Forze to me, was I loved that show so much. The other problem was they followed up Forze with Hot Garbage in Wizard, which, like, was a problem. Like, one show brought me in and the other one scared me away again. And what I'm basically saying there is I don't expect them to follow up Build in any, like, something to that same caliber, because when you produce a show like this at this level, it takes a lot out of you, and to follow it up immediately the next year isn't easy.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna have to do something either like drastically different or like just a crazy pedal to the metal anniversary series, or just end of the era, new era series. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm also kind of excited to see what they do.
I'd be really curious to see the kind of tone they go, because I think, and I know we've talked about it at some point, Grant, the experience of watching that show and going, wait, this show's for children, right?
Yeah, right.
Because it has that tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of why it's so good, is that it has that tone to it, and it doesn't feel like tonal whiplash when it does the fun stuff, too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's very much all in all the time.
Anyway, build is great. Let's talk about Super Sentai, right?
Right. So, before we get into talking about episode 11 of Lupinranger vs. Patranger, we don't often do the news just because we're a weekly show, and sometimes there's not always, we don't want to become, digging around for news every week, but if something big happens, we do like to talk about it. And this time we do have something kind of big to announce, and that is that Kamen Rider Amazons is available on Amazon Prime. This was a 45th anniversary series I'm not sure if it's a direct sequel. I know it's to celebrate the anniversary of Kamen Rider as a whole, but is I think it's a reimagining or a remix of the original Kamen Rider Amazon, which had a very violent reputation. This was, I believe, co-produced with Amazon, the company.
Yeah, it was it went direct to Amazon Prime over
right,
there.
And we don't always, the thing is, this is not the first time that Toku has been available on a Japanese platform, but it certainly is one of the first times that has popped over on our end as well. And now, I think, for a number of reasons, you could be skeptical of the importance of this news. It's just a streaming thing. Amazon was involved, so of course they're going to want to stream it or whatever. I'm sure you could tick off a number of asterisks to this to make this not that big of a deal. And all that being said, though, this is legally available streaming Kamen Rider in the US, and that's a big deal. And I believe in the UK as well, and maybe a few other territories. I know it's at least in a fair portion of the English-speaking world just from being in the US and the UK. But the fact that we have legally available Kamen Rider basically means that we currently have legally available Ultraman, Super Sentai through Shout Factory, Ultraman being through Crunchyroll, and Kamen Rider through Amazon, which means that the big three series for Toku, for Japanese Toku, are legally available in some form right now. And that's kind of a big deal. And even if, I think from my perspective, obviously Amazon was involved in funding this, so of course you can say, well, they just had to flip a switch and now it's available in the US market or whatever.
Well, it's worth noting that it's they dumped 6 Japanese shows that they were involved in producing on English Amazon all at once. So it was part of that big wave of doing a bunch of these. I get your point, and you're not wrong that this is a modern Kamen Rider show being put up officially for streaming anywhere. That's a big deal.
I just, from my perspective, even if the amount is much lower because they were involved in the production, we all know the way these licensing and streaming things go region to region, that even though it was probably just on the server end, it was probably just a flick of a switch type thing, add this to this, the US category and UK category and you're good. It probably involves some money exchanging hands at some point to say, well, if you want to sell it in this region, pay a little bit extra or whatever. These region things, there's always money involved. There's always rights talks involved. And at some point somebody said, we want to include it in the deal, the ability to stream Kamen Rider in US. To me, that's a significant, somebody at some point had to make that decision. That's not an accident.
Yeah. Amazon probably has that, standard issue in all their contracts for this kind of stuff, I'd be willing to bet. But just choosing to flip that switch says that they said, all right, this is actually worth bothering with, or paying for subtitles to be produced. Thinking about it as anything that actually matters. And not just, well, we produced this thing over there, whatever. For that matter, it's not like it went up there straight. The show started in 2016. It's been over for a year in Japan. The finale came out a year ago. So it's not like it's they're just dumping it because they've just produced it. They chose at this point to put it up.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I guess that is important to me is that somebody somewhere said, hey, we need to do this in the US too, because this isn't the first time, certainly, that Toku has been on a Japanese Amazon streaming service and didn't come over here. I don't know if Amazon was involved in the production, but I know Ultraman Orb, the Origin Saga, that was on Japanese Amazon Prime, but we didn't see it over here. If Amazon wasn't involved in producing it, that, obviously muddies the waters a little bit, but whatever the context, Kamen Rider was brought over here, and hopefully that means that may herald future things, who knows?
At the very least, I think it'll mean the second season of it, because I believe there's 2 seasons.
Yeah, we only got the first season right now, because it's 2 13-episode seasons.
Yeah, and then there's a movie that's coming out later this year, I think, to really wrap things up. I'm not sure about the details of it. I remember hearing about it in about 2016 when I heard that Amazon was producing it, and there was some murmur of it being subtitled and brought over here back then. I don't remember what the source is on this, but I remember seeing something
definitely
it'll show up
remember
eventually.
that too.
Okay, great. I'm not crazy.
I would assume that what that was is people going, like, assuming by default, well, Amazon's producing that, obviously they'll just put it up everywhere.
Right.
Because they and Netflix more or less do that most of the time.
Right.
When they
and that's just
stuff.
it, though. Like, the weird thing about these streaming sites is it's never as simple as it seems, I guess. Like, a lot of times you're like, well, why wouldn't they just all the time?
Yeah.
But they don't all the time. So I don't know. I mean, it's for me, this is obviously, it's kind of opaque. Like, there's no real specific way to know how or why or how much thought they put into the position, into this or whatever. But the simple fact of the matter is, Kamen Rider in some form is legally available over here, and it's not Masked Rider. You know, like, we have right now actual Kamen Rider, actual Super Sentai, and actual Ultraman legally available for streaming in some way, shape, or form. That's not like locked behind a double paywall. The streaming options are there. Like, I think that's important enough to note, because I don't think it's ever happened before. So
No.
But
you can still go pay $150 and buy Kamen Rider V3 on DVD, though.
Stop the podcast. I'm running out to do it right now.
Because V3 is awesome. But having a modern show, not from the 70s, on streaming service, and it's like the, mature one that they produced, for that matter, and it's just on Amazon.
Right, yeah, that's because the original Amazon...
Everyone should just go watch that.
Quite violent. And was it stopped due to its violence? That's what I've heard, but I don't know if that's apocryphal.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Do we have any predictions or any hopes for episode 11 before we get into it?
I'm feeling like we got a tiny little bit of Cowboy Absolute Zero last time, and I feel like that just means we're not going to get any more for like another 5 episodes.
Oh, they're going to make you wait on that guy forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we got, I was actually surprised by the amount of him we saw in this past episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just like, that they showed us his like actual gangler form surprised me.
Right.
That they didn't keep teasing that.
I'm going to go back to wishing for or hoping to see a double fusion attack, just because I just want to see it.
Well, within your rights to wish that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of much else. Like, I don't think I watched the preview for this.
We never
next
do.
One.
So
Is there one?
Yeah, we usually skip them.
Yeah, I do too. And I feel like we got so much plot in the last 2 episodes that I'm like expecting very little with this one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think I'll just go back to my usual wish of more hard suits. I always want to see more hard suits. All right, well, boys, we ready to spool this one up?
Let's do it.
I'm with that.
この番組は楽しい時を作るグループ PRT とザ・コミックフィンドとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
And we're back. That was an interesting one this time.
Yeah, to say the
lots
least.
of surprises. Lots of surprises.
Yeah, it was not expected for sure.
Yeah. As a quick aside, I think that it could have gone really, really bad with how they presented some of the things that happened, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, let's do a quick recap, and then we'll dive into that.
Yeah. So just, it opened with a fake movie that they were shooting that was their sort of through line for the episode. One of the people involved in the production for this like fake or this Patranger movie that they were shooting was a gangler in disguise known as Pitchcock. Which ended up being the cameraman and not the director like we all thought. Yeah, they really got us. While the Lupinrangers were trying to figure out who it was at the same time and also make sure that they got the item before the Patrangers destroyed it. We had a bit of a gender bender episode, which we'll get into in a little bit. More on Sakuya's backstory and sort of why he wanted to become part of the global police. And finally it wrapped with a Lupin Kaiser taking the helm and knocking the giant Pitchcock out of orbit, I guess. I don't really know how else to put it. Yeah, I think that's just about what we saw.
Yeah, so definitely the 2 big themes here were Pitchcock's ability to swap the genders of the Rangers, and then the other element being sort of the film, movie, kind of thematic elements. This one's sort of tough. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else on the show, but for myself, I being able to speak with any authenticity on trans identity or gender dysphoria or anything like that, I don't have the expertise to do so.
Right.
So that's everything, in any reaction to this episode along those lines has a huge asterisk next to it. I'm doing the best I can here. That being said, I think, like you were saying, Pat, I think it could have gone a lot worse.
It was definitely nowhere near as bad as that could have been.
Yes.
Like, I think that is true. I think it still went for every dumb, lazy gag that every one of these goes for. And for that, it's like, it's kind of groany. Like every boob grab, every like checking their genitals, all that kind of stuff that you would.
Right. That's not great.
Like, is, not that great, like, in there. But yeah, it definitely could have been way worse.
Right. I think the flip of it is that at least Saki, I think he sort of redeems a fair amount of it because his objective pretty much remains the same throughout. They don't do anything like, I'm less powerful now or differently powered. Like, gender is just it's obviously disruptive to them because it's a surprise, but otherwise they're just as competent and capable as they were before. They do all the exact same things.
Yeah, the most that it is disruptive is in like, oh, the chest in my costume is tighter now. Like, that's the level of disruptive it is to them as, like, police officers having to perform their duty.
Mm-hmm.
To them as characters, it's played differently, but, it doesn't, like you said, depower the men because they're now women or anything like that.
Right. And Sakia, in particular, seems to pretty much just roll with it and embrace it. I mean, again, it's definitely played for laughs quite a bit, but it's not as bad as it could be. And I think the general tone is, we're still police officers. His motivation is still to complete the movie no matter what challenge because he admires the both of them so much and sees them both as like heroic characters. So I guess the gender swapping, it's there, and the comedy elements are there, like the time where he like pushes the Polderman into his chest or whatever, and there's the big hearts and like that kind of stuff is again groany and not great, but at the same time, like, they don't really, I don't know, his overall objective is still to, and the whole team's is to succeed, and it's really more of it's a disruptive in a sense of like, oh, this is suddenly happening to me, and it's obviously quite disruptive, but they pretty much get right back into the fighting and get right back into doing what they're doing. So, again, was like, oh no, it definitely like was tensing for this episode, and I don't think it necessarily hits the mark, but it doesn't feel super mean-spirited, but I don't know, and I can't speak with great authority on it. I'd be curious to ask some friends of mine how they felt about this episode if they saw it.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to get like an actual somebody who has that experience, like understand or really, I mean, maybe, of course they can't speak for everyone, but to at least get that perspective on this. Because, while it was sort of... I think we all went into this as soon as we saw that was kind of happening. I got a bit. I got nervous. No. I was tense and clenched up the whole time. I'm like, please, don't. I don't know. Let's see how this goes.
Right.
There's a part of me that's like, okay, so it worked out better than I think any of us were expecting it to. It could have been way worse. We all agreed to that. Part of me was extremely disappointed that ended up being the way the episode went. Because the opening of the episode is so good, and I loved it so much, that I'd have liked to see them do almost the exact same premise, just cutting that aspect out of it, and going more on the hamming it up acting aspect. So the kind of the cold open to the episode is like the first scene of this propaganda movie they're producing for the global police. Like, it's got like great narration, and it's the three of them in suits, like walking towards the camera and beating up these actors that are playing as ganglers who are like in suits with black hats that looked super cool. And that bit was awesome. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the episode I've been waiting for, something like this. And then a couple minutes later, it takes that swerve and turns into this gender swap thing. And I'm like, oh, can we just do the... And it does some stuff that's actually clever with that aspect, but I'd still rather have just seen them go whole hog on the film aspect of it.
I want to say I really appreciate the actors sort of leaning into it. I don't know that this has happened before. My limited Sentai experience, unfortunately, doesn't let me know if this kind of thing has been played up before or not. But I like that they leaned into it. I think there was a bit of discomfort.
This is it's a difficult topic for us to talk about.
I can't. Yeah, I don't want to comment. I don't want to come off as too uneducated here. I mean, obviously, because I feel very ignorant to the actual thing here. But I want to say that they really rock their costumes.
I would just say that please, listeners at home, realize that we are coming into this cautiously because we are cognizant of our own ignorance here. We're trying to tread lightly just because we understand this is a very important topic to people and us as well. So
Yes.
Sorry, please continue, Pat.
I agree with you. The actors lean into it really well, and they own it in a way that makes it work on a level. I do think the scene, so there's a scene a little more than halfway through where they redo the opening sequence. But now all three of them have been gender swapped, so now they're all in different outfits. And the two guys that have been turned into girls are in like evening gowns for some reason. And then Tsukasa, the girl has been turned into guys in a suit now. And it's the exact same sequence, but they're all dressed like that. And they play it in a way that's really clever because you see Sakuya, who's really owning it, and because he's super invested in the whole production and the idea of doing this movie. He's really owning it in that scene. But the other two are visibly miserable and unhappy that they're doing this, and that they're doing it again, dressed the way they are. Red, Keiichiro, is like visibly slumping and like very clearly like just miserable being there. And I really liked that bit of the performance. Like, they performed really well with what they had. It's just the thing they had.
The weird thing. And, like, part of me is like, well, the discomfort could be read as... And this is, again, one of those things where I'm not sure to what degree my ignorance of the experience is coloring my perceptions of it. But it's like, on the one hand, you could read it as, this is really great because they're... The idea of, being different genders and stuff, like, is portrayed quite negatively. But at the same time, you could read it as, well, gender dysphoria is a real thing and can be upsetting to people. And then also Red, even though he's clearly not comfortable with it in the beginning, by the end, he's all in. He's like, no, this is actually really great. And he's really proud of the final product they've made. And he's very much like, Pat Red is kind of owning it.
Yes.
So, and even though Pink is still just like, so it's not, I don't think it's tough. It's a very tough thing to talk about, especially when, I agree with you, Patz, I think the movie element, I would have preferred that just almost be its own episode. Because I really like all the movie puns
magic
and the movie elements, the idea that monsters are aware of and making films and stuff like all of that I really enjoyed. So
I liked the movie ganglers more than the regular ones, the mooks.
Ooh,
I don't know if I agree with that, but I do like the movie Polderman.
Yeah. I liked those designs a lot.
They are good designs.
Kind of into the berets and scarves thing myself, but...
Yeah, I mean, no, I like those designs too, but I just really liked those movie character designs.
It looked like they used maybe some parts from, was it the Crows in Tokyo-Jer?
I don't know if I've seen that episode of Tokyo-Jer.
The mooks from Tokyo-Jer, I think they're crows, right? They're all like touching their hats.
I never watched any of Tokyo-Jer.
Oh, okay.
I've seen gifs of the trains, and that's about it.
All right.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time for reused props, certainly. But I like anytime they kind of play up the actual fact that it's a show. I mean, there's not really an old Hollywood feel, but there's a bit of it, like with the villain being named Pitchcock instead of Hitchcock and that sort of thing. Having I like the sort of bait and switch on the overzealous director who you think is really the monster, but then isn't. And even though the gender swap power has obviously caused quite a bit of from us, I really enjoyed the other power the monster had, which was just to make everyone trip and fall down.
Oh yeah.
So it seemed like, if I got it right, the gender swap power was just a thing he can do, and the Lupin collection power was the pratfall thing.
Correct.
I think.
That was the reason.
Because I'm pretty sure he tried to do the gender swap thing again after they stole the Lupin collection piece.
He did use it in the...
Because he used it during
the kaiju fight?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sort of swapped, air quotes, swapped the gender of the blade weapon to a hammer. Which I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, even the characters in the show went, wait, weapons have gender, which was...
Just like,
I wonder if that's like a pun
fine.
thing, like on some level, like that we don't get.
Yeah, possible.
Yeah, no way to know there.
But I did really like the hammer. That hammer was great.
Yeah.
The shots that they had with the hammer were really, really fun.
The hammer was cool. I really dig that weapon a lot. Also, it's a giant orange hammer.
Yes.
Like Grant said during, like, as we were watching, it's like, oh, it's Gal Gaigar, because, like, the Goleon hammer is, you know, giant orange hammer, too. So I'm a big fan of giant orange hammers. So it was very cool to see that. I was very excited for that weapon. And that was, honestly, the first part of that fight was one of the better, I feel like, fight scenes we've seen with the robots at this point, with the hard suits. Like, it moved. That's been kind of the thing with the robots so far in this show. I feel like they're kind of stiff. That's a thing I've really appreciated since they've introduced the sword, is that with Lupin Kaiser, they're moving a lot more with the sword now, because they're actually, you know, swinging it around versus, you know, shooting guns or whatever like they were doing before.
Yeah, I think the thing with Lupin Kaiser, or Pat Kaiser, has been that we, especially with the statue episode, we got quite a bit of kind of gunplay with ducking behind buildings and stuff. But Lupin Kaiser has been more stiff. But yeah, I agree with the sword and shield combo. It's been much more exciting and kinetic, and I always appreciate that. And then I got my wish. I got lots of good hardsuit action.
Oh, yes.
Particularly appreciate that it was not just set in a city. They were actually fighting in the movie set. Always a big fan of kaiju fights in settings that aren't just cities. I mean, I'm always a fan of kaiju fights, period. But I didn't really care for the spinny attack as much. But when they dropped the hammer on the ground and it did that sort of that line explosion,
earthquake shot,
that was a really
all right,
good
we should
attack.
describe the spinning attack, because it's like, so the finishing move for Lupin Kaiser with the giant orange hammer, you're like, oh, he's gonna throw the hammer at it or something, because he starts spinning like crazy. And then what's his name, the bad guy, Pitchcock just runs into them. Yeah. And the hammer hits him. It's like, what happened here? Why did you just run into a hammer? But other than that, it was great.
Aren't always the smartest.
Team rocketed off.
Yeah. He's just defeated. It's like, oh, everything's okay now.
Oh, another thing. It was funny that the Good Striker was trying to decide who to work with, and the Lupinrangers were just like, nope, you're working with us today. And I also appreciated the Lupinrangers swinging around, Pat, as you put it, Spider-Man 2 style.
Oh, yeah.
Just swinging around in the middle of the air. I found that
because you can't make them pratfall if they're swinging in the air.
Exactly. Tricked ya.
Yeah, this episode actually extremely bums me out, because so much of it is what I've actually been waiting for from this show. Like, it's really fun in a way I've been looking for. And then it's like got this one of the, like, well, it's really the A-plot of the thing is so tough to kind of, you know, deal with, that it's like, why did this have to be mixed in here in such a way like this? Because I liked so much of this episode and found it so much fun overall.
I mean, it's one of those things too that, and I mean, we kind of have to keep coming back to it in a sense, but like the fact that,
I mean, it's the A plot of the episode. Like, it's like,
yeah, it really is. And like, on the one hand, it's like, I don't like how much of it's played for comedy. The flip side of that too is that, I mean, of course, you know, this is not everything with the Patrangers just about has been played for comedy to some degree. So it's not like all, like, they were serious up until now and then suddenly were comedic. Like, they've kind of been the joke team. But then maybe we shouldn't have given them this episode. That, you know, it just makes it that much more complicated to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, guys, do we have any more kind of final thoughts or observations before we get into Twitter questions?
So do you guys like Lupin Kaiser or Pat Kaiser more?
Ooh, I like Pat Kaiser's yo-yo weapon a lot. Like, it's probably one of my favorite weapons that I've seen. Like I said before, I'm keen on weapons that aren't guns or swords. And they have the fact that their sword is like their new thing puts Lupin Kaiser just a little bit below. I mean, yeah, fine, they got the hammer, but Yo-Yo is like way above hammer for me. Like, that's just my feeling on it, though.
For me, hammer is top tier.
Well, I know,
and then
fine, but
I actually I like them both, but so I'm going to bring this aspect up. I like Lupin Kaiser's combination sequence more. Something about it clicks with me better. I don't know what it is. I think it's the flying vehicles thing. And then their theme song during the combination, I think, is the better of the two. I don't know if I'm making controversial statements here or not, but I like that one more. So I think I like Lupin Kaiser more. They're also extremely similar in a while, because they have the same base. So
right, yeah.
I think that's an easy one for me to some degree because I was pretty much down the middle on both. But now that Lupin Kaiser has the Goldian hammer from Galgagar, I'm contractually obligated to prefer it. It's been neck and neck so far, but I can't not now.
I'm glad it's so easy for you.
It's going to be interesting to see that one come back, or how they explain that one coming back.
Oh, yeah, because it was a temporary switch.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see when it shows up.
Maybe they just use a different code on their dial and it turns into it or something.
Or Good Striker can just make it happen on a whim. That would be fitting with the show. All right, well then let's get to these Twitter questions. So for the first one, from Samuel Madness, good buddy, he says, "Oh no, a Super Sentai team is coming to stop your nefarious plots. Pick 2 or 3 inanimate objects nearby that you think would create strong Toku monsters for the Monster Maker." Very much a Finster reference here for our MMPR Zyuranger people out there.
Well, if you know me, you know I like toy robots. So I happen to actually be surrounded by toy robots at all times. So that's a little unfair. So I don't know if I'm not going to just say Gao Gaigar because he's sitting right here and I can grab him if I wanted to. Actually, okay, I've got a better answer, but give me 1 second and I've got a better answer for you.
Okay.
Oh, actually, okay. So, popular meme webcomic that everyone knows of the dog sitting in the burning fire, drinking coffee, saying, "This is fine." I have the large, giant plush version of him sitting right here. So I think he would make a very strong monster or something to... Are we trying to destroy a robot? Or I actually can't remember which side we're on.
I mean, obviously, we're the villains here.
We're the villains here. So I think he would be a very good villain because he is immune to fire and can just sit and let the world burn around him while drinking coffee.
Oh boy.
No matter what happens, every super attack, he's just like,
he can just ignore all of it.
I would love to see this. I would love to see that drawn. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So somebody on the internet draw that for us.
Yeah, right. I think I have a pretty good one here. So I have some headphones nearby, and I think you could probably incorporate a headphone like nunchucks theme, and it could be like wielding the headphones, like slinging them about and battering the heroes with it, and then maybe like he could swing them around and like put them into the Rangers' ears and like force bad music into their hearing and stuff like that. I think you could play around with that theme, musical nunchucks.
I would love to see that on the Giant too, just to really bring it in there. I know one item. We're supposed to pick 2 or 3, or just one's fine, do you think? Cause
I think 3 for the whole team will be fine. If we go around again, it'll take
forever. That's fair. Okay, well, then easy peasy for me is this alarm clock that's sitting in front of me. The most powerful and evil device known to man, because it dictates when I'm gonna have to get up and when I have to go to bed. What worse than a monster that rouses you from precious sleep? So I'm thinking of like a giant alarm clock monster here that'll, some kind of horrible sound waves, I guess. And then they have to either like hit the snooze or like ultimately wake up and turn it off.
Maybe he can like hit snooze on their attacks and like pause them.
Yeah, that's very evil.
There's a darkness here.
From our buddy Ed the Crimson, since no descendants of Lupin have shown up at this time, and in light of his ability to disguise himself, do you think Kogure is a descendant of Lupin and assumes the guise of a butler just to take the steam out of the Lupinrangers and to keep tabs on them?
He claims he's serving some kind of descendant of Lupin, so he could be lying and he could actually be the one since he had that Master of Disguise moment. But I imagine people who serve Lupin directly would have to have that kind of skill on them, maybe?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either way, I think. He's definitely lying about things.
Right.
What those specific things are, I don't know yet. We don't know yet. But he's definitely not telling the whole truth. It would not surprise me in the least if that's what we find out, is that he's actually the guy.
He's actually Lupin himself.
Yeah.
Making them do the dirty work. Not even an ancestor.
Yeah, that also wouldn't surprise me if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it's very possible. I mean, I think we'll know Kogure is a descendant of Lupin if he manages to steal the blockchain. I think that'll be the key.
Oh my goodness. You're really dating these podcast episodes. You know that, right?
I know. I do it just because I like to. I mean, to be fair, we're watching them as they're released, so technically it's all dated. I mean,
fine.
Well, actually. And coming to us from Pablo KM, what's your favorite / best Toku-themed video game? And if you don't have one, describe the ideal game.
I have one written down here.
Okay, fire away.
So my number one has to be Wonderful 101. Because while there are Toku games like Beautiful Joe and even Chroma Squad, that one's like really close anyway. I think Wonderful 101 did a really cool job of showing like a Sentai team moving in one, because you sort of, depending on whatever your attack is, you activate whichever member of your team. But it really captured kind of like the silliness and the kind of like the plastic rubber suit latex look to it, which is really, really cool visually.
Right.
And then also a big part of the game is deputizing civilians and making them part of your giant mass of people. Mass. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Like the wonderful, the 101 and the Wonderful 101 is all of the people that join you, and it's ridiculous and it's silly and it's great. Like they really like lean into the toku-ness of it. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, I'm with you there. I adore that game. So you and I are, two of the 1,000 people that played it. And it's fantastic, and it's an obvious love letter to like tokusatsu and like costumed heroes from Japan, just in the same way that like Beautiful Joe is too. Same guy.
Yeah.
Like
Kamiya.
They're both such good. Both of those are really kind of, if you're looking for games that are tokusatsu styled and also good video games, they're kind of like the long and short of the list, I feel like.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Like, the other thing I would say is, like, I don't know, like, Battle Dodgeball is cool, I think. It has really cool sprites. It's like a Super Nintendo crossover game. Like, there's a bunch of them. There's the Dodgeball game and a couple other ones. There's multiple Battle Dodgeball games. And they have, like...
Is that like Super Dodgeball Advance?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. I'll look into it.
Super Dodgeball is the one that's Kunio themed, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Battle Dodgeball is like a Band Presto thing, so it's got Gundams, Kamen Riders, and Ultramans in it.
Whoa.
The Ultramans.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of those games, and they're, okay. They're not amazing, because none of the Band Presto games from that like Super Nintendo era are what I'd call amazing. But they're really cool looking. They have incredible sprites for like all your favorite guys from that era. So you got your Gundams, you've got whatever Kamen Riders were around at that time. It's always a random mix. You've got like Black and stuff like that in there. They're really cool looking games. People should at least check them out for the cool sprites.
So I guess I'll be different just to be different.
Be different.
On the one hand, yeah, that's me. On the one hand, Beautiful Joe and Chroma Squad are both games I love very dearly. I've never played Wonderful 101, but that's because I haven't owned a Nintendo console in the better part of a decade, so
I'm praying that they port it to the Switch. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd love them to.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with kind of a nostalgia pick. I have very fond memories of playing the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game for SNES. It was kind of a side-scrolling beat-em-up type thing.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if it's good.
It's okay. I
can't
played it on a Twitch stream a while back, and it's okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember it being pretty good. Like, not quite like Ninja Turtles 2 arcade good.
Yeah, it's not that level of good, but it's good.
yeah, it's a pretty good little game, and I remember really enjoying that. So I'll pick that just to pick that. But I also love Beautiful Joe and Chroma Squad. Those are like just.
There were actually, I didn't even think about it. There were actually a bunch of pretty okay Power Rangers games in that time period. Because there's that one. There's a movie side-scrolling beat 'em up. There was a couple different versions. There was a movie one that was at least on the Genesis that I really dug.
That one. Yeah.
Did you ever play the fighting game? It was like there were multiple fighting games, but there was one for the Genesis that was just a Mighty Morphin fighting game, and it was super clunky and weird. But it looked really cool though. The sprites are amazing looking. So I would like check it out just for that. And then there was a Megazord fighting game for the Super Nintendo that was also really cool.
That sounds legit.
I have a weird little aside about the Super Nintendo Power Rangers game. So that would have been, let's see, it would have been about 2000. Yeah, like 99, 2000 that I was at a friend's house and he was having like a birthday party thing. And it was supposed to be, it's his birthday. We were there to hang out with him and then, whatever birthday things are going on. But when I found out, because I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up, when I found out he had that game, that's all I wanted to do. I was like, oh my God, I don't have an opportunity to play this otherwise. And then I was just trying to sneak off and play the game whenever they were doing stuff. I think I missed the cake and everything. I was like, I need to play this Power Rangers game because I heard it was good. Clearly I have a sickness.
Clearly. That's okay. It's a good sickness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man. Oh, I wanna mention this before I forget. It's not good. There was a Power Rangers Zeo pinball game for the PlayStation.
Oh,
what a strange.
It is a very strange combination, and it's not a good video game. But I just wanted to mention it because it popped into my mind, and I played it at one point, and it was extremely frustrating. But it existed.
Well, there's
a thing that existed, and it was a mixture of things that should not have been mixed together, but it existed.
What ought not be. Even though it was a difficult one to unpack, Patz, thanks for being on to help us tackle it head on, and definitely tell the people where they can find you at all the various things and places and stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, thanks again for having me on, guys. It was a lot of fun, even if it was a tricky one to talk about. You can find me, on Twitter, you can find me at PatzPrime, that's PatzPrime. And then the podcast is The Cockpit, which is at thecockpit.net and CockpitPod on Twitter. So that's really everywhere you can find me. If you go to those places, you'll see everything else I'm doing. So yeah, cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.